Tom. Welcome to my grow room. I just wanted to do a video on something called a penny stove. After I did my video on my tin can stove, my wood-burning tin can stove, I saw lots of videos on YouTube about this penny stove. And I watched some of them and it looked really cool. Some of you might be wondering, is this a gardening channel? Is this a stove making channel? Like, what is going on here? Basically, I don't have enough going on with growing anymore, so I've been looking at some other stuff that's just been interesting to me. And I love hiking, I love camping, and this kind of thing, kind of survival gear and camping gear, I just find interesting and neat. So I like to make videos on things that I find cool. And this penny stove is definitely something cool. I would really recommend anyone who likes hiking, camping, backpacking, or just wants to have an emergency stove kicking around at home. This is a really great option that you can make yourself really cheap. So basically, the stove is made out of the bottoms of 2 aluminum cans. Pop cans, beer cans, any size you want. And how big you cut your bottoms, what size you cut them to, can vary as well. You could make a really skinny guy that just holds a little bit of fuel for a very short burn, or you can have a bigger one that holds more fuel for a longer burn. So it's kind of your choice. Mine's probably about 1.5 inches to 2 inches tall. And lots of videos you'll see that they cut one bottom to one size and the other bottom will be bigger or smaller. I found you can cut them both to the same length and it works fine. The whole reason they call it a penny stove is because you make holes in the center on the top, and that's where you pour your fuel in. And then you cover it up with a coin, a lot of the time a penny. I'm using a nickel. But you cover it up with a coin after you've got the fuel in there, so that the flames don't come out of those center holes, and they come out of the holes around the outside. So there's 16 holes around the outside of the penny stove, and that seems to be the magic number. I experimented with making more holes to see if it would heat stuff faster, and it actually had the opposite effect, and it heated slower. And I think it's just because the closer you get them together, the little jets of flame, I think they start competing with each other for oxygen. So you pour liquid fuel in here, and once I got this thing put together, I started experimenting with what was the best kind of fuel. So how this works is you pour liquid fuel in here, and it's best to put in a piece of fiberglass insulation inside your 2 can halves. But you don't have to do that. You can still make a functioning stove without the fiberglass. Just the fiberglass helps speed up the priming time, helps get the fuel from liquid form to gas form. Because that's what you want and that's what you need to get this thing to work. You need to have liquid fuel heated up enough until it reaches its boiling point. It produces vapors. Those vapors come out of these holes and they ignite, and they're like little jets of flame, like a propane burner. Same idea. It's fuel in a gas form coming out with a very very hot little jet of flame. So another thing I found is what helps with the working of the stove and just its strength and everything, if you seal the 2 halves together with JB Weld. which is just a putty, a very strong adhesive putty that's really high temperature resistant, so it's not going to burn or melt or degrade from the heat, and it's waterproof. It's great stuff. It's hard to work with, I found anyway, but if you can get a nice layer in there, it makes a really good seal, and you're not going to lose any of your gas, any of your vapors coming out of that seal. So the fiberglass insulation and the JB Weld, they're optional. You can still make a stove that will work without those, but I found you can make a better stove if you use the fiberglass insulation and the JB Weld to seal the two halves together. Yeah, 16 holes, that's the number to go with, and 5 in the middle for filling with fuel. You could probably go with less. I wouldn't go more than 5. 5 holes, the fuel drain since they're pretty quick. So on the topic of fuel, I tried Coleman Camp Fuel because I had it kicking around. So I tried this, didn't work. Which makes sense because when you use this in a lantern, which is what I use this in, I have to pump it up. So that's telling me that I got to get this into vapor form, it needs pressure. Hey Pip, you checking out what I'm doing? So don't bother with camp fuel. I tried rubbing alcohol. I have 70%. Couldn't get it to work. I did some research. Even if you have 91% pure rubbing alcohol, you can. It's only a mediocre fuel, so that didn't work. I knew that hand sanitizer had denatured alcohol in it, so I tried this hand sanitizer just to see if it would work, and it didn't. So don't bother trying that. And then I tried this product called Heat, which is a gas line antifreeze and water remover. I got this bottle, 355 milliliters, not sure what that is in ounces. And I got this from Walmart for $4. And this stuff works, but it takes about 3 minutes to get it to prime. So it takes about 3 minutes to get the stove functioning as it should, with the jets of flame coming out of these holes, using that heat product. And I found the best priming method is to pour fuel after you're done filling. To pour fuel a little bit in the top, a little bit down the side, and put your stove in another can. I'm using a tuna can. It works great. So you have fuel in here, and then you take your lighter and you run it along the outside of your stove and kind of in the can here, and you're gonna. What that does is it's heating up the stove, so it's heating up the fuel in the stove. It's keeping the fuel that you've poured into this tuna can lit, which is also heating that stove up, and together with the fuel in here on fire and the lighter, you're heating that fuel up in the stove. Eventually it's going to start boiling, the vapors are going to come out, and you're going to get these great little jets of flame, really hot. If you had like a butane torch, that would probably quicken the priming time too, because it's just a lot more heat being added to the stove. So yeah, this product Heat, I found once you got it lit, it did work great, but it took about 3 minutes to get this thing to prime. Another priming method I've seen people use is to hold the can and directly light it from below. I think that's a little bit unsafe, personally, and I did try it, and I found it took longer to get it to start. You know, I'd be heating, trying to light up here, nothing was happening. So I found it was not effective, and I think it's dangerous. I think it's a lot safer to put it in something and pour the fuel around. That would be the priming method I would recommend. So I eventually tried fondue fuel, or it's called methylated spirits in England and maybe in some other places around the world. What's great about this 500 milliliter bottle, I got it for $1.50 from my local dollar store. So I got a lot more fuel for less money, and it primed in half the time with the heat. So it only took about a minute to a minute and a half, about that, to get the fuel up to its boiling point and to get those jets of flame coming out of here. In terms of performance, both the heat and the fondue fuel were the same once the stove was lit. But the difference in price and the much shorter priming time, I would say that this is the fuel to go with. Fondue fuel or methylated spirits, that's the best thing to use in a penny stove. I found these little hand sanitizer bottles work great for keeping your fuel in. It holds 1 ounce or 30 milliliters, and that will last for half an hour. That'll be half an hour burn in your penny stove. So, what can you do in half an hour? Tin can, aluminum can, just an empty bean can, holds about 1 3/4 cups of water, or about 400 milliliters, which is a good mugful. If you put that on your stove with the tin's lid on there, you can get water to boil between 5 to 6 minutes. That's including your priming time. So once this thing's lit, you can get water to boil in about 4 to 5 minutes in a tin can. So it's pretty quick. The container you're using does make a big difference. I tried just boiling in this metal mug I have with no lid, and it took 20 minutes to boil. This holds 2 cups or 500 milliliters, so just 100 milliliters and a quarter a cup more than the tin can, but it took 4 times as long to get water to boil in here. I had this aluminum pot. I took the handle off of it just to save space, and I took the handle off the lid to save space. And basically I'm going to use this pot as my storage container for my stove, my tuna can stove holder, and then I also made a pot rest burning plate kind of thing and a pot stand for it to go on. So I'll bring you guys in and I'll show you how this kind of goes together, and I'll show you how much space I have in here. And really, I mean, the amount of stuff you could fit in here, you can fit a lot of stuff in this pot. And that's the great thing about this little stove, is it's so small, so lightweight. You could fit it in a really tiny little can, and you've got a very efficient, very powerful heat source. Okay, so this is a close-up look of the... So, in some videos, people have sanded their, some people have sanded their, stoves, but I found it just it takes such a long time that I didn't bother. I don't mind having a bit of paint around there. It doesn't bother me. So that just sits in the tuna can. I made this little pot stand, cut it from a can. This is the bottom of a coffee can with holes drilled in it. And my pot just rests nicely on there. And what's great is everything that fits in the bottom of the pot. This stuff all fits in there. I can fit my bottle of fuel. I could have several bottles in here, which is probably a a good idea, you know, if one of them leaked or if you spilt it. You know, if you had a couple bottles, then you got a backup rather than having all your fuel in one bottle. So these little sanitizer bottles were great. Fit a lighter in here. Although the mug didn't work well as a cooking vessel, it's still nice to have a mug to drink out of. So that fits in here. Pop that fuel in there. Pop the lighter in there. Got my spoon, which assembles and comes apart. Pop that in there. Multi-tool. You can stick that in there. And there's still tons of room all the way around the side here, which you could fill with tea bags, packages of soup, hot chocolate, you know, lots of stuff. If you can boil basically this whole mug full, enough to fill this mug full in 5 minutes, one little bottle of fuel like that, you know, half an hour burn, that means you're going to get basically 6 times, 5 to 6 times, you're going to be able to fill this mug with boiling liquid of some sort, whatever you feel like. And it's just great how portable it is. And then, you know, you just stick your lid on, and this does lock together. So you're good to go. So I think I covered everything I wanted to talk about the stove. So yeah, just check out the rest of my video with the making of the stove, and yeah, enjoy. And the great thing, honestly, you could probably make this whole thing with a multi-tool. You got your pliers for your crimping. Cans are easy to cut. If I knew, this sharp knife, it's thin, pointy enough end, you could make the holes with it. So you could definitely, you could make this with a multi-tool. So if you're in a pinch, you could get this going. If it's the zombie apocalypse and you need to make yourself a cup of tea before you get eaten alive. So I got a nice rolling boil going now. Better take it off before it makes a mess. That was right around 6 minutes. I'd say 6 minutes, so that's from a cold start to get a can of water to boil. Okay, so 5.5 minutes, and that can is boiling. So I just wanted to see what difference it made on boiling time for the 2 cups of water, or 500 mils, if you use a pot instead of that that blue mug, that metal mug. And I got a nice rolling boil going here. And this pot even has some holes in the top, so yeah, I got my little pot stand, and it took 5 minutes, 45 seconds to get that to a rolling boil. So compared to the 20 minutes it took in that mug, so the type of cooking, boiling vessel, I guess, you have makes a huge difference. Because yeah, about 5.5 minutes and this was boiling. So I just tasted them, and right on 5 minutes. They're bubbling and they're nice and hot, ready to eat.